Princess Lyra of the Andromeda system had always known that her species was different. Among the countless stars of her home galaxy, her people moved slowly, planned carefully, and reproduced rarely. Every birth was calculated, every child treasured, and every family structured in strict hierarchy. Lyra herself was a product of careful selection, chosen to inherit the throne not just for her intelligence, but for her curiosity and ability to understand worlds beyond her own. And yet, despite all the careful planning, there was one mystery that had always puzzled her. Humans. Humans were nothing like the Andromedans. From what she had observed through her advanced sensors and long-range studies, humans multiplied at an astonishing pace. Families formed naturally, sometimes spontaneously, and children seemed to appear in numbers that made her people's most careful calculations seem almost laughable. But it was not just their numbers that fascinated her. It was the way humans lived, loved, and created societies around the simple act of growing their families. There was something in the human approach that was chaotic yet productive, messy yet full of joy, unplanned yet thriving. Lyra had watched countless videos, simulations, and reports compiled by her advisors. Humans walked on two legs, talked in countless languages, and engaged in what her translators described as cultural rituals to celebrate life itself. She had seen humans dance in the streets, gather in communities, and sing songs to honor babies born into the world. And everywhere she looked, life seemed to explode in all directions, creativity, curiosity, and laughter growing alongside their numbers. Her ship, a sleek silver vessel shaped like a crescent moon, descended slowly into Earth's atmosphere. Lyra adjusted the controls carefully. Unlike most of her people, she believed that true understanding required direct observation. Reports could only tell so much. Simulations could only hypothesize so much. To truly grasp the human way, she would have to see it for herself. And so for the first time in her young life, the Andromeda Princess set foot on a world that had captured her imagination completely. The planet was alive with colors, smells, and sounds. Lyra's sensors expanded to take in every detail. The green of the forests, the glimmering blue of the oceans, and the warm golden hues of human cities sprawling across the landscape. Birds flew overhead, their songs weaving together in what her data suggested were complex patterns of communication. Humans moved among one another, carrying children on their backs, holding hands, speaking and laughing in ways that seemed almost musical. It was overwhelming yet exhilarating. Lyra's first destination was a small town near the coast. She had chosen it carefully, large enough to observe many families, but small enough that the social interactions could be recorded in detail. She disguised herself as a human, using the ship's advanced holographic technology to alter her appearance. Her tall, luminescent frame shrank to a more average height. Her silver blue skin turned a natural human tone, and her eyes, which once shimmered like stars, now reflected the soft brown of her chosen disguise. She walked through the streets with careful curiosity, notebook in hand, recording observations with precise attention. Families were everywhere. Mothers and fathers guided their children with gentle hands, sometimes laughing as toddlers stumbled over uneven sidewalks. Older siblings helped younger ones carry baskets of groceries. Lyra noticed grandparents sitting on benches, smiling as they watched their grandchildren play. Everywhere she looked, humans interacted with each other in ways her people did not. There were no strict protocols, no rigid hierarchies. Respect was given, yes, but it came naturally, not enforced by law or tradition. And most fascinating of all, the humans seemed genuinely happy to be together. She paused in a small park where a group of children was playing. Their laughter rang out like music, a pure expression of joy that had no equivalent in her world. Some children chased a brightly colored ball, while others ran after each other in games that seemed entirely spontaneous. Lyra noted the energy, the cooperation, and the creativity in their play. She could see that these early interactions shaped the humans' ability to form social bonds and, ultimately, their capacity to build families of their own. Nearby, a mother sat on a blanket with her infant. She hummed softly, rocking the baby in her arms, and the child responded with tiny smiles and coos. Lyra studied the subtle movements, how the mother adjusted the baby's position, how the baby's tiny hands reached out instinctively. There was a rhythm here, a mutual learning process that fascinated Lyra. On her own planet, parents instructed children with careful lessons and controlled environments. The humans, however, seemed to teach by doing, by feeling, and by sharing love openly. Lyra wandered further into the town, visiting markets and schools. She observed children interacting with teachers, learning not just academics but also social skills. Humans helped one another, solved conflicts creatively, and celebrated each other's successes. Everywhere she looked, she saw the connection between reproduction and human culture. Children were not just born. They were nurtured, guided, and integrated into a larger social framework that valued curiosity, empathy, and cooperation. That evening, Lyra returned to her ship to review her notes. She recorded every detail: the laughter, the learning, the loving gestures, and the spontaneous problem-solving. Her advisors had always emphasized that humans were biologically interesting, but Lyra realized that biology alone could not explain their success. Humans were creative, adaptive, and emotionally intelligent. Their rapid multiplication was not just a matter of biology. It was a result of culture, curiosity, and connection. For the first time, Lyra felt a personal fascination that went beyond science. She wanted to understand humans not just as subjects of study, but as beings with depth, emotion, and ingenuity. She wondered what it would be like to experience their world from the inside, to see life through their eyes, to feel the connections they took for granted. Her curiosity grew into something more profound, a desire to participate, to immerse herself in the human way of living, even if only temporarily. The following days were spent in careful observation. Lyra attended family gatherings, community events, and local celebrations. She witnessed weddings, birthdays, and small festivals. Each event revealed new layers of human behavior: cooperation, joy, creativity, and resilience. Humans faced challenges: illness, poverty, and natural disasters, but they responded with collective effort and ingenuity. Their ability to multiply, to thrive, and to create was not just a biological trait. It was a testament to their spirit, adaptability, and care for one another. Lyra recorded every detail, from the way parents taught children simple tasks to the way communities came together to solve problems. She realized that the humans' remarkable reproductive rate was intertwined with their emotional intelligence. Families thrived because humans nurtured not only bodies but also minds and spirits. Children learned to think, to feel, and to collaborate, ensuring that each generation was stronger and more capable than the last. One evening, Lyra sat on a hill overlooking a bustling town. Lights twinkled like stars below, and laughter carried on the wind from the streets. She reflected on the stark contrast between humans and Andromedans. Her people planned, calculated, and rationed life carefully, but the humans' approach seemed messy, chaotic, and yet astonishingly effective. There was a freedom in their way of living that her species had never known, and it filled her with awe. Lyra's fascination deepened into a personal obsession. She wanted to understand not just how humans multiplied, but why. She wanted to uncover the principles that allowed humans to thrive despite unpredictability, imperfection, and spontaneity. She wondered whether her people could learn from humans, whether Andromeda itself could benefit from a little chaos, creativity, and love. As the sun set over the horizon, Lyra made a decision. She would study humans more closely, not just as a distant observer but as a participant. She would interact, learn, and experience their way of life firsthand. She would explore the emotional, cultural, and social mechanisms that drove human multiplication, and perhaps in doing so, unlock a new understanding that could change her own world forever. The first part of Lyra's journey had revealed the extraordinary energy of human life. She had seen the beauty of spontaneous laughter, the warmth of family bonds, and the creativity that thrived alongside reproduction. Yet she knew this was only the beginning. The deeper mysteries lay not in observation alone but in experience. And so, with a heart full of curiosity and a mind buzzing with questions, Princess Lyra prepared to immerse herself fully in the human world, ready to uncover the secrets that had fascinated her for so long. By the time the night sky stretched across Earth like a canvas of stars, Lyra's fascination had grown into determination. She would understand humans, not just their bodies but their hearts, their minds, and the vibrant culture that allowed them to multiply in ways her species could scarcely imagine. And in that determination, she felt a spark of excitement that went beyond science. The thrill of discovery, the joy of learning, and the hope that her journey among humans would reveal truths that could transform her own world. For Princess Lyra, the adventure was just beginning. Princess Lyra awoke early the next morning, sunlight streaming softly through the thin curtains of the small human guest house she had rented. The air smelled faintly of bread and flowers from the market below. Today, she would move beyond mere observation from a distance. Today, she would see humans up close, interacting with families, learning from one another, and celebrating life in ways no report or simulation could fully capture. She adjusted her disguise carefully. Her silver-blue hair now shimmered in golden-brown hues, and her large star-like eyes had softened into ordinary human brown. Her Andromedan attire was replaced with simple clothing, designed to blend seamlessly into Earth's world. She carried a small notebook and a recording device ready to document her experiences. Lyra's first stop was a local school, where children of all ages gathered for lessons. She had chosen this location because she wanted to understand not only reproduction, but the social systems that supported growth and learning. The schoolyard buzzed with life, children running, laughing, and calling out to one another. Teachers guided them gently, offering encouragement rather than strict commands. A teacher, noticing Lyra's curiosity, approached her with a warm smile. "Hello, are you here to observe our students?" Lyra nodded politely, using her translator to mimic human speech. "Yes, I am studying human development and interactions." The teacher's eyes sparkled with interest. "Wonderful. You can join us during our activities. The children love when new people visit. It's a great way to learn about the world." Lyra spent the morning moving between classrooms. She watched young children learning to write letters, older children solving math problems in groups, and teenagers discussing science projects passionately. She noticed patterns immediately. Humans taught not just through instruction, but through participation. Children were encouraged to explore, ask questions, and even make mistakes. Mistakes were not punished. They were celebrated as opportunities to learn. In one classroom, a group of children worked together to build a small model of a windmill. One child's piece did not fit properly, causing the structure to wobble. Instead of scolding, the teacher encouraged the children to work together to adjust the pieces. The laughter that followed reminded Lyra of what she had observed in the park days earlier. Humans thrived in collaboration, learning not only facts but how to communicate, solve problems, and support one another. During lunch, Lyra sat quietly at a corner table, observing the cafeteria. Children shared food, exchanged stories, and offered help to those who struggled to open containers or carry trays. Older students guided younger ones not as a duty imposed by rules, but as a natural gesture of care. Lyra marveled at the depth of empathy she witnessed. Even in a noisy, crowded environment, humans instinctively nurtured one another. After school, Lyra followed some families to local homes. She noted how parents organized their day around children, preparing meals, helping with homework, and engaging in play. She observed the dynamics between siblings, noticing how conflicts were resolved through conversation and compromise rather than force. Every interaction seemed to reinforce the social bonds that supported human growth. At one home, she met a young boy, Eli, and his younger sister, Mia. Eli proudly showed Lyra a small garden he had planted, explaining which seeds would grow into vegetables and which into flowers. Mia skipped around laughing, holding a tiny watering can. Lyra was fascinated by the natural curiosity in their eyes, the way they asked questions and experimented freely. She realized that humans' capacity to multiply was deeply connected to their ability to learn, explore, and nurture curiosity from a young age. Lyra asked the children about their routines. They described attending school, helping parents with chores, and spending time with friends. Yet it was clear that their relationships with adults were based on trust and mutual respect, not fear. Lyra recorded every detail carefully. On Andromeda, children learned obedience and precision, but here, learning was intertwined with care, creativity, and emotional growth. In the evening, Lyra attended a local community festival. The streets were filled with music, laughter, and colorful decorations. Humans of all ages participated, dancing together, playing games, and sharing stories. Lyra noticed that children were included in every aspect of the celebration, learning cultural practices while being encouraged to express themselves. She recorded the joyous interactions in her notebook, noting how cultural rituals strengthened family bonds and social cohesion. indirectly supporting human reproduction. A storyteller sat in the center of a circle, weaving a tale of courage, friendship, and wisdom. Children listened intently, eyes wide, absorbing lessons about cooperation, empathy, and problem-solving. Lyra realized that humans pass knowledge not just through books or instruction, but through shared experiences and stories. These narratives instilled values that guided behavior, encouraged creativity, and prepared the next generation for independent life. Lyra spent the night on a hill overlooking the festival. The glow of lanterns reflected in the nearby river, and the sound of laughter carried on the breeze. She reflected on what she had learned that day. Humans multiplied not only biologically but socially and culturally. Families were supported by communities, and children were nurtured not only by parents but by society as a whole. Emotional intelligence, cooperation, and creativity were as important as physical growth. The following days were filled with even closer observations. Lyra accompanied a group of parents and children on a nature walk. They explored forests, streams, and meadows, teaching children about plants, animals, and the environment. She noted the way children absorbed information through direct experience, guided gently by adults. Lessons were not rigid. They were playful, exploratory, and collaborative. One afternoon, she observed a father teaching his daughter to identify different trees. When the child made a mistake, he smiled and offered hints rather than correction. The joy of discovery, the gentle encouragement, and the shared laughter impressed Lyra. On Andromeda, knowledge was often transferred with precision and formality. Here, learning was a living emotional experience. Lyra realized that this method nurtured not only intelligence but social adaptability and resilience, which in turn supported family life and growth. Lyra also observed healthcare practices. Humans visited doctors for checkups, vaccinations, and guidance on nutrition. Parents worked closely with medical professionals to ensure their children's health. Lyra noted how proactive humans were about well-being, combining scientific knowledge with emotional support. Even small gestures, like a parent soothing a crying child during a checkup, reinforced bonds that contributed to the human ability to thrive and reproduce. One evening, Lyra attended a local library program for children. Volunteers read stories aloud, assisted with crafts, and encouraged imaginative play. Lyra marveled at the integration of education, creativity, and social interaction. Children not only learned facts but also how to communicate, collaborate, and imagine possibilities. These experiences, she realized, created a generation capable of independent thought, problem-solving, and innovation, qualities essential for human survival and multiplication. Lyra's fascination deepened. She realized that humans did not simply reproduce in a biological sense. They multiplied socially, emotionally, and intellectually. Each child was nurtured into an individual capable of contributing to family and society. This multi-layered growth explained the human's remarkable adaptability and resilience. The chaos that seemed so random from a distance was, in reality, an intricate system of care, learning, and shared experience. One night, as she reviewed her notes aboard her ship, Lyra felt a new kind of excitement. She had learned much through observation, but she sensed that the deepest lessons lay in participation. Humans were extraordinary not just for how they multiplied, but for how they lived, learned, and loved. She wondered what it would be like to experience their world firsthand, to engage in the very processes that nurtured life. Lyra decided to immerse herself further. She began volunteering at schools, helping children with reading and games, and joining families in daily activities. She experimented with cooking, gardening, and creative projects, learning through doing. Every interaction taught her more about human culture and social structure. She discovered that even simple acts like preparing a meal or planting seeds carried lessons in cooperation, responsibility, and care. Through these experiences, Lyra began to understand something profound. Humans multiplied successfully not only because of biology, but because of their creativity, empathy, and emotional intelligence. They nurtured not only bodies but minds and spirits. Communities flourished because individuals flourished, and individuals flourished because communities supported them. Humans had evolved a system of growth far more intricate and adaptive than her own species had ever developed. By the end of her second week on Earth, Lyra felt transformed. Her curiosity had evolved into admiration, and her admiration into a desire to learn even more. She realized that humans were not merely subjects of scientific study. They were models of what life could be when creativity, empathy, and social intelligence guided growth. She resolved to continue her studies to engage more deeply and to explore how these. Princess Lyra returned to her ship after weeks of immersion in human life, her notebook brimming with observations and ideas. Earth had revealed to her a complexity and beauty she had never imagined. Humans did not merely reproduce biologically, they multiplied socially, emotionally, and intellectually. Their culture, their bonds, their joy and creativity, all of it reinforced the growth of their species in ways Andromedans could scarcely conceive. Back on Andromeda, Lyra was determined to apply what she had learned. Her species was intelligent, disciplined, and highly organized, yet their slow reproduction limited their growth. Every birth was planned, every child raised in a strictly structured environment. While effective in some ways, it lacked the warmth, spontaneity, and adaptability she had witnessed on Earth. Lyra wondered, what if her people embraced human-inspired practices? Could they grow not only in number but in creativity, happiness, and social cohesion? Her first step was to introduce her ideas to her advisors. She summoned the council to the royal hall, her notebook in hand. The chamber was filled with tall, luminous figures, their eyes reflecting centuries of tradition and careful planning. Lyra stood before them, her voice calm but passionate. "I have observed a species called humans," she began. "Their reproductive system is fast, yes, but that alone does not explain their success. Humans multiply because they nurture, teach, and inspire one another. They cultivate creativity, empathy, and social bonds alongside growth. I believe we can learn from them." Her advisors exchanged cautious glances. The concept of borrowing practices from another species, especially one considered primitive by Andromedan standards, was unusual. One elder spoke, his voice resonating with centuries of authority. "Princess, humans are unpredictable. Their methods may work on Earth, but we have thrived through order and careful planning. How can chaos benefit our people?" Lyra smiled gently. "It is not chaos. It is structured freedom. Humans combine rules with empathy, tradition with creativity. Their success lies in adaptability and emotional growth. I propose a controlled experiment guided by these principles to see if our species can benefit as well." After much discussion, her council reluctantly agreed. Lyra was given permission to initiate a pilot program, a small-scale experiment in human-inspired nurturing and education. She carefully selected families and mentors willing to participate, emphasizing that this was a trial to enhance both the quality of life and the growth of Andromedans. Lyra began by observing the existing family structures within Andromeda. She noticed that parents provided all material needs in education, but emotional nurturing was limited. Children were taught precision, discipline, and responsibility, yet creativity and social intuition were seldom encouraged. She realized that human-inspired methods could complement the existing system rather than replace it. Her first experiment involved cooperative learning. Groups of children were encouraged to work together on creative projects, building models, solving puzzles, or creating stories. Unlike previous instruction, which emphasized correctness and efficiency, these projects focused on collaboration, imagination, and mutual encouragement. Lyra observed closely, taking careful notes on every interaction. At first, the results were tentative. Andromedan children used to strict rules were hesitant to share ideas freely. Some struggled to work together without guidance, but Lyra patiently encouraged them, demonstrating the methods she had seen on Earth. She guided older children to mentor younger ones, fostering natural bonds of care and cooperation. Slowly, the children began to embrace the new approach. Laughter echoed through the learning halls, curiosity sparked in their eyes, and innovative solutions emerged in ways Lyra had never witnessed before. The second experiment focused on emotional nurturing. Lyra introduced daily routines where families spent time together, not for instruction or tasks, but simply to connect. Parents engaged children in conversations, shared stories, and explored playful activities. They learned to celebrate small achievements, comfort minor frustrations, and encourage independent thought. Lyra watched as children responded with enthusiasm, showing signs of increased confidence, creativity, and emotional awareness. She also applied her observations to social organization. In human communities, neighbors and extended families played active roles in raising children. Lyra encouraged Andromedans to adopt similar practices, creating cooperative networks where families could support one another. The results were astonishing. Families became more connected, mutual assistance increased, and children developed richer social skills. The small pilot communities began to flourish with newfound energy and creativity. Lyra introduced storytelling as a tool for cultural growth. Every evening, families gathered to share stories of courage, kindness, innovation, and curiosity. Children listened, asked questions, and retold the tales in their own words. These sessions fostered imagination, problem-solving, and emotional understanding. Lyra noticed that children who participated in storytelling became more empathetic, more confident, and more socially adept. The human-inspired method was enhancing not just reproduction, but overall growth and resilience. One particularly inspiring moment occurred when a young Andromedan girl, Ceylon, created a story about a small group of explorers discovering new worlds. She wove lessons of teamwork, curiosity, and kindness into her narrative. The story captivated the entire community. Lyra realized that this creative exercise, simple as it seemed, encouraged independent thought, collaboration, and empathy, all qualities humans naturally nurtured alongside reproduction. Lyra also studied the interaction between older and younger generations. Humans thrived because elders mentored the young, passing on knowledge and wisdom while nurturing individuality. Lyra encouraged Andromedans to spend more time with children, not just instructing them but sharing experiences, listening, and guiding with care. The elders themselves found joy in these interactions, their own perspectives enriched by the children's curiosity and imagination. As weeks passed, the results of the pilot program became clear. Children were happier, more creative, and socially adept. Families communicated more openly, communities worked together more effectively, and overall growth, both in confidence and population interest, improved. Lyra presented her findings to the council with pride. This experiment confirms that human-inspired practices can enhance our species, she explained. By combining structured guidance with empathy, creativity, and cooperation, we can nurture not only our bodies but our minds and spirits. The human approach to multiplication is holistic. It grows intelligence, emotional strength, and social cohesion alongside population. The council, once skeptical, began to see the potential. Some elders admitted that the children seemed happier, more capable, and more connected than previous generations. They marveled at how simple human-inspired methods could transform lives without disrupting Andromedan culture. Lyra's experiment was not just successful, it was revolutionary. Encouraged, Lyra expanded the program. She created workshops, training sessions, and community activities to promote creative learning, emotional nurturing, and cooperative social structures. Families began to participate willingly, excited by the joy and growth they observed in their children. Lyra worked closely with each family, offering guidance and sharing lessons from her observations on Earth. She also experimented with small-scale cultural practices inspired by humans. Celebrations for birthdays, achievements, and community milestones were introduced, blending traditional Andromedan rituals with new, human-inspired activities. Music, dance, and storytelling became common, enriching the emotional and social lives of children and adults alike. Lyra observed that these celebrations strengthened bonds, encouraged participation, and created a sense of belonging, all essential for holistic growth. In her private moments, Lyra reflected on the transformation she was witnessing. Andromedans, once disciplined but emotionally restrained, were becoming more expressive, imaginative, and connected. The pilot communities flourished not only in numbers but in spirit. The human approach to multiplication, Lyra realized, was not about numbers alone. It was about nurturing potential, fostering creativity, and cultivating empathy. These qualities ensured long-term survival, adaptability, and happiness. Lyra also began to understand something deeper. The human's ability to multiply successfully was intertwined with their joy, curiosity, and resilience. Children were not passive recipients of knowledge. They were active participants in a system that nurtured their growth. Families, communities, and culture worked together to create an environment where life thrived. Andromedans, with their precision and intelligence, had lacked this holistic approach. Now, under Lyra's guidance, they were learning to integrate it. One evening, Lyra observed a young boy, Aaron, helping his younger sister, Lyra, build a small model of a city. Aaron showed patience, creativity, and problem-solving skills, while Lyra contributed ideas and energy. Their parents watched, offering encouragement but allowing the children freedom to experiment. Lyra realized that this moment perfectly embodied the human-inspired principles she had introduced: cooperation, creativity, empathy, and autonomy. It was a living example of the power of holistic growth. Lyra also reflected on her own role. Princess Lyra stood atop the gentle hill overlooking her city, the soft glow of Andromeda's twin moons reflecting off the spires and domes of her homeworld. It had been months since her return from Earth, and the changes she had introduced were flourishing in ways she had never imagined. Families were happier, communities were closer, and the spirit of curiosity, creativity, and care had spread like sunlight through the lives of her people. Lyra's heart swelled with pride as she observed the transformation. The pilot experiments had begun as a small trial, cooperative learning, emotional nurturing, community celebrations, but now they were part of daily life across Andromeda. Children laughed more freely, parents interacted with warmth, and neighbors supported one another in ways that reminded her of the human societies she had studied. Her people had embraced the lessons of Earth, not as a mimicry of another species, but as a means to enrich their own culture. One morning, Lyra visited a family who had been part of the earliest phase of her experiment. She was greeted by the laughter of children running through the courtyard. A young girl, Tessa, held up a small model of a floating city she had built with her friends, explaining each detail with excitement. Lyra listened carefully, asking questions and encouraging the children to share their ideas. The parents, once formal and restrained, now interacted with ease and warmth. They explained their own contributions to the project, not as teachers or authorities, but as partners in discovery. Lyra noted the balance between guidance and freedom, structure and creativity. This combination, inspired by humans, had strengthened both families and communities. Lyra spent her day moving through various neighborhoods. Everywhere she went, she observed signs of transformation. Public spaces, once quiet and orderly, now hummed with life. Children playing together, adults sharing stories, and neighbors helping one another spontaneously. She noted how these changes encouraged not just growth in population, but in the social and emotional fabric of society. Andromedans, she realized, were thriving in ways they never had before. In the central learning hall of the city, Lyra watched a class of children engaged in a creative exercise. They were building models, drawing maps, and inventing stories together. Older students mentored younger ones, guiding them gently while teachers facilitated rather than dictated. The energy in the room was vibrant, filled with curiosity, problem-solving, and collaboration. Lyra remembered the schools she had visited on Earth and marveled at how similar yet unique her people's adaptation was. One particular story captured her attention. A young boy, Kieran, had created a tale about explorers discovering distant stars. The narrative emphasized teamwork, courage, and empathy, much like the stories she had witnessed on Earth. Lyra recognized that storytelling had become a tool not only for learning, but for shaping values, imagination, and community bonds. She felt a sense of satisfaction, knowing that the human-inspired principles were now deeply embedded in Andromedan culture. Lyra also observed the growing role of communal celebrations. Birthdays, achievements, and cultural milestones were now marked with gatherings, music, and shared activities. Families and communities came together, reinforcing bonds and teaching children the value of participation, cooperation, and joy. These celebrations strengthened relationships and created a sense of belonging that Lyra knew was crucial for holistic growth. During one evening gathering, Lyra spoke with elders who had initially been skeptical of her experiments. One elder, Leora, reflected on the changes with a smile. "Princess, I admit I was doubtful," she said, "but now I see the children are happier, the families are closer, and the community is stronger. Your ideas, inspired by humans, have enriched our lives in ways I never imagined." Lyra bowed respectfully. "It is not only my work, Elder Leora. Humans have shown us the importance of nurturing creativity and empathy. We have learned from them, but we have made these lessons our own. This is our transformation, guided by both observation and experience." The transformation extended beyond families and communities. Lyra noticed that Andromedan's curiosity had grown as well. Children asked more questions, sought new experiences, and explored ideas beyond their previous boundaries. Adults engaged in creative projects and problem-solving, fostering innovation and adaptability. This cultural shift, Lyra realized, was as important as any increase in population. Humans multiplied not just through biology, but by nurturing the next generation of thinkers, dreamers, and collaborators. And now Andromeda was beginning to do the same. Lyra also implemented intergenerational mentorship programs inspired by human practices. Older citizens shared wisdom and experience with younger ones, while younger citizens brought fresh perspectives and energy. This reciprocal system enriched everyone involved and created a continuous cycle of growth and learning. She marveled at the resilience this fostered. Andromedans were no longer merely surviving, they were thriving in mind, heart, and community. In her private quarters that night, Lyra reflected on the journey that had brought her here. She had begun as a curious observer, fascinated by human reproduction and social growth. She had studied, learned, and experimented. Now she saw the results, a society transformed, a species more vibrant, adaptable, and joyful than ever before. The humans' lessons had ignited change, but it was Andromedan's willingness to embrace, adapt, and expand upon them that had made the transformation real. Lyra decided to document the entire journey. She compiled her observations, the experimental data, and the cultural transformations into a comprehensive report. She intended to share it not only with the Council but with all of Andromeda, so that every citizen could understand the value of curiosity, empathy, and cooperation. The report emphasized that multiplication was not just a biological process, but a holistic endeavor, encompassing social, emotional, and intellectual growth. One day, Lyra received a message from Earth, sent through interstellar communication channels. Humans had detected her presence and were curious about her experiences. They welcomed dialogue, eager to exchange ideas and learn from her observations. Lyra smiled, realizing that the bond she had formed with Earth went beyond study. It was now a bridge between worlds, a connection built on mutual curiosity, respect, and admiration. She prepared a diplomatic message, sharing insights about how humans had inspired changes on Andromeda. Lyra praised the humans' creativity, cooperation, and nurturing practices, highlighting how these lessons had enriched her people's lives. She proposed ongoing collaboration, envisioning a future where both species could learn from and inspire one another. The response from Earth was enthusiastic, filled with curiosity and encouragement. Lyra continued her work, visiting neighborhoods, schools, and community centers, observing the ongoing impact of her programs. She noted that children now approached challenges with confidence, creativity, and collaboration. Families supported one another, sharing knowledge, resources, and experiences. Communities were more resilient, adaptable, and joyful. Andromedans were thriving not just in population but in spirit, creativity, and social connection. She also reflected on the personal impact of her journey. Lyra had learned lessons about empathy, patience, and the value of nurturing potential in every individual. Her own understanding of leadership had deepened. She realized that guiding a species was not only about rules, efficiency, or planning. It was about fostering connections, creativity, and care. These insights, inspired by humans, had transformed not only Andromeda, but Lyra herself. During a festival celebrating the progress of the pilot communities, Lyra addressed her people. Children laughed and danced around her. Parents and elders listened intently, and neighbors shared stories of cooperation and joy. Lyra spoke of the lessons learned from Earth, emphasizing that the transformation of Andromeda was a collective effort. Humans have shown us that multiplication is more than biology, she said. It is about nurturing creativity, empathy, and connection. We have embraced these lessons and we see the results in our children, our families, and our communities. Together, we are building a brighter, more vibrant future. This is our achievement, inspired by curiosity and guided by care. The crowd erupted in applause, and Lyra felt a deep sense of fulfillment. The changes she had introduced were no longer experimental. They were integral to the way Andromedans lived. The species had grown not only in number but in wisdom, emotional depth, and social cohesion. Humanity had inspired transformation, and Andromeda had embraced it fully. Lyra spent the following days reflecting on the long-term implications of her work. She realized that the principles she had introduced, cooperative learning, emotional nurturing, storytelling, community support, and intergenerational mentorship, were universal. They could be applied to any species or culture seeking holistic growth. Humans had provided the spark, but it was Andromedan's willingness to adapt and expand that had created lasting change. She also considered the future. The bond between Andromeda and Earth offered endless possibilities for collaboration, exchange, and mutual growth. Lyra envisioned joint programs, shared knowledge, and cultural celebrations spanning galaxies. The lessons of multiplication and holistic growth could inspire new generations of leaders, innovators, and nurturers across worlds.